with the scooter. We finally actually got out of them yesterday. We did around about 11 miles on them. It didn't really use any of the battery. We come back with over 49 volts, so I would say you're going to get a good 30 miles out of these. But what I did want to do after we've done a little ride was just check everything on the inside, see how everything was bearing up. So it was quite a bumpy ride. We did some good hills, things like that. What I have noticed is the battery is stuck down with some sort of adhesive inside there, and I just wanted to run through everything. So I've just started going through basically all these wires, as I said on one of the last videos, that I wanted to tidy them all up and just put them nice and straight inside. But what I have noticed when I've opened up the scooter is these little LCD lights that run down the side of them, they're going through on little nuts and bolts. As the batteries move slightly over to the left hand side of the tray, the battery is actually sat onto one of the back ends of the bolts there. So these lights aren't something that I like, or it's just going to waste power. So I'm going to remove these lights and just cap up these holes, so there's no chance of that going into the battery and causing a dead short of any case. I did want to start upgrading, maybe possibly just a little bit of a tinning on the shunt. The problem is though, there's that much torque comes out that back wheel when you put the power down, it just wants to wheelie. I want us to do just a quick update, just show you where we're at with this, and it's things that you can check yourself just to make sure that nothing's going to bind on this battery and start causing any problems, because this has got to be one of the most expensive parts of the scooter. So I'm going to go ahead, remove the stand, remove these lights from the side. I'm going to straighten up all this wiring. I've just literally been working through all of this just to find out what everything does, what everything is coming back down. You've got the LCD control wires, you've got the light switch wires, you've got the feed wires that go back up to the front light. I've traced back out the lights for the back, the brake, the stop and tail, the indicators. I just want to put all these back in nice and neat, so I know exactly where everything is, and if there is a problem on anything I can trace it nice and easy and make sure that nothing can get damaged while we're out on these scooters. But I just wanted to see, or wanted you to see, inside of the actual unit itself and what I'm doing. So all I'm going to do is, you can see everything was just wrapped around, pushed in on each other, and it's just a bit of a mess really. Some of these connectors wasn't pushed together as well as what they should have been. So I'm just going to disconnect all of these, re-straighten them back up. I can't make my mind up yet whether or not that I'm going to open this controller up, just have a look what the FETs and the caps are like in there, just have a look how well built that actual control unit is. Needs to be, I've replaced the control unit. I wouldn't mind replacing the LCD throttle with something that I've got a little bit more control over. We have tried to, you can adjust how fast and how aggressive this thing takes off. In zero it's quite an aggressive takeoff. You was on it yesterday, weren't you? And just popping wheelers every time you tried to take off on it, so you had to bring it down into mode 2.
Yeah, mode 2 was a lot safer for me. I didn't feel like I was going to pop a wheelie.
I don't understand that, because you still got up to nearly 30 mile an hour in mode 2.
I'm a lot lighter than you.
Oh, cheers, love. Yeah. You actually scared me to death yesterday how fast she was going on the thing.
You have to test them.
It's testing, dear, and it's bloody dangerous. But anyway, getting back to it, I'm just going to whip all these wires out, trace all back what everything is, and just start getting my head around it. It's nice to be able to get to know these things a little bit better as well. I hate stuff like this when it's in a mess, so all of these can all be positioned nicely in there and just have their own little pathway. So everything, it's as simple as just unplugging them. If you're not really that good on tracing stuff back, then I would say just clip and unclip them, put them back, so you know you're not going to get yourself in a pickle. But everything can just be seated in such a nice place. I'm just going out to the back light. Here are the phase wires for the motor. That's the charge lead coming in. Let's have a look, see what size fuse we've got in this main feed wire. To the, we're going to the BMS. It's a 75 amp. That's going to be a 7.5 amp. Yeah, 7.5 amp on the charge side of it. So that'll be fine if I do up that charger to a 5 amp from a 2 amp. There's just little bits and bobs where things are binding. You can see where it's come in transit. It's obviously damaged that, and the stand's been pushed in slightly and deformed the actual side of the housing. I really don't like how these bolts are touching that battery. I might even put something down the side of them just to pack them out. But yeah, that's just a quick update of where we're at now. As I say, we've done 11 miles on them. Awesome little things. They didn't have any struggles going up the hills or anything, did they?
No, it was so much fun as well. They put a smile on your face.
Definitely recommend them, but if you are going to buy them, I would recommend opening it up and just having a look what you've got inside. Because quite clearly that's damaging the side of that battery and we can't have that. Right, well, I've got the speed controller out. I've got most of the wires out of the way. I'm just literally going to seat that over this side of it. I've put all these battery, the charge side of the wires, nice and neat, because these are all just literally wrapped in with all the others. But obviously there's a fuse in there that you're going to need to get to if it stops charging. So I've literally put those nice and neat down the opposite side. I've taped up that one, so that's all out of the way for a second. I've just straightened up all of these wires, and I'm literally just going to put them all so they're all nice and neat across the top, out of the way. If I do need to change the brake cable, that's probably going to come off and go hydraulic. But the sticky buds they put to that side, one there, so none of these are actually touching. So I'm going to take all of these off the speed controller, and when I put it back in, I'm just going to fix that in nice and sturdy so it can't move around. Now I've got this out of the way, I'm tempted to actually take the battery itself out. I imagine it's just going to be stuck on these sticky buds the same as everything else. And I've got more of these sticky buds that I can actually stick it back in there central. And if I use something like a few of these sticky buds that are probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 mil thick, put some of these down the sides of the battery so if it does move, it's got some cushioning around it. Or just something like that, or something foam, just something that's going to stop any damage occurring to this battery if it does move. As I say, they're good value for money, but the only problem is you need to think safety wise and just sort this out really, because everything's just a bit of a mess. It won't take me maybe an hour. It's raining today, so it's not really going to be an issue. I removed the daft LED lights off the side because obviously with me weighing a bit more than Emma, it's going to drain the battery more if I start using the front light at night. I think they're not really my cup of tea at all, so I didn't want those on there. I don't want it to look like a UFO coming down the road at night. I'd sooner literally just have on there my main front light, my stop and tail light and my indicators on the back. I think if you've got those daft lights on the back and a car comes past you, they're going to spend more time looking to see what you're on. I think it's just going to drag less attention to yourself and probably not cause anybody to drive into you as they're taking too much time looking at what's coming down the road, expecting it to be a bloody hoverboard or something. But that's where we're at. I'm just going to remove all this foam pads, crack open the speed controller, have a look, see if it's a twin or a single shunt in there, have a look at the FETs, have a look at the caps, just to see what size everything is, to see if it is actually a decent unit. A lot of them are quite oversized, so it would be nice to, well, it will be nice to see. But yeah, we'll leave that there for a second. So I've got the battery out, the battery's all removed. As I thought, that was just stuck in there with sticky buds on the bottom. So I'm going to put a load of fresh sticky buds on there, just reposition that. But there was just something else that I wanted to show you. Normally on the bottom of the board, in between this, well, you can normally have an insulator that will go across the bottom, just to stop if there's any vibration. If this starts to contact with the bottom of that, bits are just going to start popping. As you can see where they've slid it in, it's not sat in the channel that side. That's just bad, that is. So I'm going to have to separate the FETs from the side of the heatsink there, but I need to put something in there just to make sure nothing can go to short. Then when I reassemble it, I can put it all back in that channel so it's actually built properly, because at the minute that's liable just to vibrate. Contact, I'm not going to push it too much, because if that contact's on that bottom, that's literally just going to short that out and pop this controller. So as I say, I think this might have been a Friday afternoon job, this one. 63 volt caps, so they're not very big. I might order some more of those and just literally remove those caps and just replace them with something a bit more manly, 100 volt or something, nothing too major. It's twin shunted in there. It'll be nice just to get this all separated, but I'm gonna have to put something down the back of that just to insulate it, just to make sure when I start removing this from the housing that it's not going to contact and start damaging stuff on the back of the board. So yeah, that's where we're at the minute. So I'm just going to rip this to pieces now anyway, and get it all safe. So I've whipped the board back out because obviously that wasn't into the sink very well, into the casing very well. Just had a look at the shunts. As you can see, there's two shunts in there. One's quite well tinned one side, quite well tinned that side. So there's only a small amount across the centre, so I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm going to literally put it all back together how it should have been put into the case itself, so it can't contact anything, and put an insulator between the back of the board and the case itself, so nothing can actually contact with it. I just wanted to show you inside of that. It's back together now, board's back in there. But if you take a closer look at that, you can see now that the board is actually sat in this channel, which is going to keep it well away from the bottom. And I've not got an insulator at the minute, so I've literally just stuck a foam pad that's right at the edge of the board, well away from anything. So if it was to try and come back out that channel again, it's literally just going to sit on that before the caps can contact the bottom, which will save those, because if they contact that bottom, they're just going to pop. So what I'm going to do now is just get this all back together, get all this wiring straightened up, stick the battery back in central with some nice foam pads on the side of it, get everything stuck down and back into a nice position so nothing can actually contact. There's a couple of bits that I'm going to reheat shrink as well as this goes back together. All these wires are going to go back in there nice and neat. I'm going to have to put something just on these holes just to waterproof them. I don't like the fact that one of these, where are they gone? One of these little nuts and bolts that was going through the side there was literally just contacting the side of the battery. So those LED lights are just going to stay off of there. Put it all back together nice and neat, and I might order myself a nicer controller and a nicer screen, something that I can mess about with without having to go inside this controller again. Everything looks good on there, so I've done 11 miles on it. You'd like to have thought if the caps was going to start to bulge or anything, they'd have started to have bulged by now. So I've got a little bit more confidence in this thing now. I've took it to bits and got to know it just that little bit better. So yeah, I'll get this all back together again now and get it all back powered up. This must have been a Friday afternoon. I know I've said that before, but it must have been a Friday afternoon job where last one of the day. Emma's, yours didn't seem that bad at all, did it?
No, mine's not, but
I
now.
to mention that we have got two scooters now, so Emma's got her own scooter as well. But I don't know if it's on this video or the video before, you seen where I had to reposition quite. Everything's back in there. All the cabling's coming through nice and neat. I've restuck the battery back down in the centre. I've put some nice tight foam packers in there so that cannot move. I've covered the XT90 just with a piece of foam, so if that does try to vibrate side to side or up on the top, that's going to be covered. I've just put some basic tape on there just to keep that fuse down. I'll probably put another piece of foam pad just on that top. Everything there is covered with some nice foam padding, so literally nothing, the controller and everything that's under there cannot move once that's all sat down onto this foam padding with the deck back in place. It just looks a hell of a lot neater. There's nothing there now that can actually damage the battery, and I've ran through everything. I've put the controller back together how it should have been in the first place. I'm happy with that now.